Welcome to Studio with your local lay Dominicans. We'll be discussing some of the gems we discovered in our studium, where we share the fruits of our contemplation and the joy of the gospel message. Representing our St. Albert the Great lay Dominican chapter and co-host of today's show are myself, Cheryl Drozda,
Jeff Drozda,
and Wesley Stonicher.
And today we're going to have a little discussion about entertainment and sanctifying entertainment. We just talked about, a couple weeks ago, the Feast of St. Joseph, and we talked about sanctifying work. And I believe that was part of the inspiration, but also we had a discussion one day outside of Mass with Wesley about watching some entertainment and having to stop watching it at some point in time because it didn't contain the virtues that we were looking for.
Yep.
So we thought this would be a good discussion to have because it's very important that we're careful about what we put in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in kind of preparation for today, a reading that kept coming to mind was Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, the eye is the lamp to the soul. Let's see it. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? So, my wife and I, Jen and I, we're raising our children and they're teens and under. And so entertainment, media, this is a constant conversation in our house. It's a constant opportunity of discovery of what is out there. And, we land on things that are, true, good, and beautiful. Any, leisure that doesn't point towards God or rest or lead you to something that's true, good, and beautiful, then it's really counter to what we're trying to do within our household. And so when we spoke after Mass, kind of brought this idea up for the podcast. The conversation I was having with one of my teens was more centered around music, and we were looking at some of the music he's gotten into, genres that when I was his age I was into, and hip hop, rap, things with a good beat, dance beats, and all these things. And I've always really highly censored or taught all of them to listen to the words of the song. When I was young, I fell for, I just like the beat. I'm not even paying attention to the words.
Right.
And I can remember one, this was a heavy metal song. My dad comes to my door when I was a teen, and he pauses at my door, which, he did every once in a while. And he doesn't say anything, and I turn the music down like, hey, man, what you need, Dad, whatever. He's like, man, have you ever listened to the words of this song? And I said, I just listen to the beat. I just like the sound of it, man. Just, leave me alone, Dad, whatever I did. And, trying to be cool or whatever, trying to, be a teenage boy. And as soon as he kind of left my doorway, I kind of waited, and then I went and I looked at the words to the song. His question made me pause, and I started looking at the words, and they were not great. They weren't explicit, but when you looked at them for what they were saying and the poetry of it, supposedly, it was not uplifting. And I was listening to this album to sleep at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was having, I was aggressive. I was, part of that's being a teenage boy, I guess, playing sports or whatever. But much of it was probably spiritual that was coming through this music. So, I tossed that CD and I started looking at it. It began this discernment for me, even at a young age, of discerning what I was listening to. And it was a single comment from my dad at the doorway, And so now as a father, I'm hyper aware of that. So we have very big open discussions about the words to songs.
It's interesting. You refer to the situation as an opportunity. For most parents, it's more like a battle. And I think it's all how you approach it is that, you always begin with a question. It's always good, just like your dad, dad did, you begin the question. So why is that? Or, so what do you get from that? And that's a very wise approach to it. I'm usually like, what the heck are you doing? Why, why are you doing that? But it's something that plants the seed of their own
conscience, or
it's a matter of that they can find out on their own. And it's just like, we try to tell our kids X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no, you're wrong. But if it's their idea, and if they're able to find it out on their own, they can come to that exact same conclusion that we were trying to pound in their heads for months.
I think I'm kind of like that too, Jeff.
Yeah, well,
if it's my idea, I get it.
That's right.
You can't tell me what to do.
That's exactly right. Well, and music has such a penetrating, what do I want to say? Impact on not only on your mind and body, but on your soul. And if you're listening to Highway to Hell, you're not going to walk away with wonderful sort of thoughts and contemplation. And in today's society, especially with the music, it's now just more. It's not just music anymore, because of course now with when MTV first came out, prior to that, it was just music. Now you have video and music. And now you have all kind of stuff beyond that with the video and music, and it becomes all-encompassing. And in a lot of ways, it's extremely dangerous because, now you're seeing almost a flaunting of, with some entertainers, almost satanic. And it's not just subtle. It's kind of in your face, which
is nothing new.
Which is nothing new. I mean, you go back to when we were young, and you go ahead and play the albums backwards, and you hear all that kind of stuff. And so it's but there is that segment of entertainment that I will say is satanic and very dangerous. Now, I'm not saying all of it is, but there's that portion of it that either people want it to make out to be that way, or it actually really is. I mean, unfortunately, just like in all other professions, especially in the entertainment industry, there's a questionable side of that. And those are the type of things that, as parents, we have to protect our children from. But at the same time, we don't want to shelter them and, for them to find certain things out on their own, or worse yet, with their friends or with people that they barely even know. So there is that fine line.
Yeah, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm aware. We shelter our kids to an extent, and where's that line of too much sheltering? In this particular case around the music, one of my children commented the other day that the thing that he hates is when an artist will come out with something that's innocuous and just awesome and fun and approachable, and then the next album they switch to inappropriate, demonic, or sexual, whatever it might be. He says, I hate that. It feels like such a betrayal, And this is a kid saying this.
Wow.
Well, one of his younger brothers ordered a piece of art for his room, and the art had the nickname of one of these artists that he doesn't respect, and has flipped the switch like that, and has come out as has done things that are satanic or inappropriate in his being. So he points out it's something we didn't recognize. This nickname is on the piece of art, and so we researched it a little bit, and for better or for worse, if it's really bad or not, I don't know. I didn't discern, but we decided, especially since the older brother pointed it out, that this is not coming in the house.
Wow.
So he's like, we told the little brother, hey man, we're gonna pick you something different. Here's the why. Your big brother's telling you this. We respect what he's saying, and he's right. We agree with him. All the things. The little brother brought it in the house and opened it and tried to convince us, and we're like, whoa, this is no, man. And so, we put it back out, I said a St. Michael prayer, and had a conversation with the younger brother about why we don't want this, and listen to the discernment of the bigger brother too.
So in terms of music in our society, how do we go about, I guess, facing the culture that we live in? And we go back and we look at the great composers that would compose hours of music for masses. And you look back and there are various requiems and you have Brahms and Vivaldi and all these wonderful musicians. And at that time, of course, you had beautiful churches, you had cathedrals, you had just when you walked in, you felt like you were in heaven. And today, I think overall we're missing that beauty. We're missing that the connection with what we see and what we hear will draw us closer to God. We're in this battle, it seems. And if you talk to exorcists or read what exorcists are saying, there's been a dramatic increase in what they say demonic activity. And so, as parents, what do we need to do to counterbalance that, and not to say, okay, we need to go back to the Renaissance and just listen to Brahms, but how can we counter that now?
Well, the enemy doesn't have to necessarily get us to worship him. He just has to get us to stop acknowledging God or to stop worshiping God. Like, that's a win for him. And so it's super interesting. Something you brought up earlier as we were prepping for this. It's the doom scrolling that social media causes us to do. One of the pieces of entertainment my kids, or all the kids in their group, it's these YouTube videos of these people doing these dares, and it's just innocuous stuff that's just, it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't do anything, and it's quick, fast, and it changes. And they will, if I allowed it, they would watch it for hours and get nothing out of it, and get no closer to God or beauty, right? And so that would be a win for the enemy if and they're not relaxed at the end of it. It's not true leisure.
Right.
Jen's been talking to me about what true leisure is. Are you truly resting? Are you doing an activity? I took one of the boys to paint ceramics the other day. We sat there for an hour, and I was so relaxed, and he was so chill. And it was true leisure. It was a creative activity, going back to the beauty. But social media, all the media, even if it's not going all the way into the darkness of that side, if it can just get us to not look at the light, that's a win.
I sometimes look at, this might be completely different track, but similar, because we're talking about our kids and so forth, but also as far as I listen to music, and what I kind of do is sort of the 20-80 thing that a lot of people talk about with food. 80 to 90% of the time, eat healthy, and then allow yourself a little bit of snacks, as long as it's not, horrible or over, So I kind of do that with music. I really try to put a lot of good stuff in. Every now and then, if I'm running and I'm listening to music that's, not... It's the Rocky soundtrack and things like that, but nothing bad, just not necessarily
more secular.
More secular. Yeah. And every now and then I like to listen to something if I'm driving and getting tired. But other than that, I try to really and I'll even want to listen to something, but I actually stop myself. I'm like, no, I really could benefit more from listening to a very Gregorian chant, which I don't do very often. I have to admit, I'd like to do that more. Or for me, it's some of the Psalms sung in Hebrew. I love Psalm 27 sung in Hebrew, and that's one of my favorite songs. So I'll put that on. It puts me in a different place, and I like it when I'm done, and I feel much more peaceful and more engaged with even what's going on around me than I would with the other songs, where kind of get closed in my own self or whatever. So.
I mean, it's the uplifting thing you're talking about. When composers composed music, it was to glorify God and to uplift the soul and build these cathedrals. You walk into an old cathedral that's built with these unbelievably tall ceilings. There is an elevation that happens in your spirit and your soul and your awareness, as opposed to, a church that may be more modest and humble, a converted grocery store or whatever. It's different. There's a different There's a different thing that happens just in the surroundings. So music inside our earbuds does that for our soul as well.
Because you were saying, Wesley, that is a type of eye of our soul too, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you wanted to explain
yeah,
that.
thank you. So the eye is the lamp of the body, and we're talking about, you know, watching movies and social media, and then music as well. And music, obviously, the ear. So I look at this reading, and one thought that we had was that, you know, the eye is the stand-in for all the senses, and all the senses create the mind's eye.
Right.
And so that we are what we think about. You know, we you know, if we constantly think, you know, negative things, and that the world is happening to us, and we're, you know, everything is terrible, and well, that's what we're gonna see in our life. And if we look at things as God's providence, and that God can guide all these things, and God has put this in my path to teach me a lesson, to help me grow spiritually. If we look at all of the obstacles in front of us in that manner, well, then all of a sudden everything is this opportunity to grow. Like, so the way what we create in our mind, you know, does have a reality in the world. And so what we allow ourselves to see, listen to, contemplate, does affect and influence what we become and then what we do.
I know that, you know, some people, you know, may be interested at the very end of our show. You hear some trailing music, and it's done by the Hillbilly Thomists. And it's like, I'm sure people are wondering, you know, why are you playing bluegrass music at the end of your
rad.
show?
Because they're awesome.
Well, because they're talking about, you know, the Bible and the bourbon and what the heck. And just a little bit of background of the Hillbilly Thomist, and they got their name from Flannery O'Connor, who would read St. Thomas Aquinas every evening. And, you know, she kind of, you know, penned herself as a Hillbilly Thomist. And so they picked up on this, and in 2017, a group of friars got together. Dominican friars, you know, based in Washington, D.C., at the Dominican House of Studies. It was just for their leisure to come together as a community and for music. And then all of a sudden, they cut their first album, and it went to the top 5 on the bluegrass charts.
And it went viral.
And that's right, as the song goes. So, and so you have a bunch of, you know, Dominican friars getting together and playing some music, and in their own way lifting up God in terms of music, and allowing other people to come together and not only pray but listen to some good music. And we are very happy to announce that on August 10th, the Hillbilly Thomists will be in New Orleans at St. Dominican School. And you can get more information on that by going and looking them up, the Hillbilly Thomist, and their music. And then they have an entire tour schedule for this year. They're going all over the country. And you know,
how do we get backstage passes?
Well, you know, the thing about going to their concerts, their backstage is a curtain and then the wall. That's as backstage as it gets. And so it's going to be a wonderful time, and encourage you know folks to go to New Orleans to have a chance to check them out. But you know, that's just another example, and that's why we have you know, the Hillbilly Thomists as music at the very end of our show. And so we encourage people to look at that. But you are listening to Studium to Studio, and we are your Third Order Dominicans, our lay Dominicans here in Lafayette, Louisiana, based out of Our Lady of Wisdom Parish. And we want to thank Catholic Radio for Acadiana, Christ our King Catholic Radio. And we are on 90.5 FM, 99.5 FM, and 1230 AM. And we want to thank Stein Lumber for their generous sponsorship of our show every Thursday at 4 p.m. And they have locations throughout all of Acadiana. So we are talking about the sanctification of entertainment. And for the first half, we spent, you know, I think most of the time talking about music. What about movies? Movies is something that they are something that when we were growing up, you know, going to the movie theater was a big deal. Of course, we were growing up. We had, you know, four TV channels on our TV, and that was about it. Cable was just starting, and MTV then later started coming out. And so, we had, it was a different shift, because I remember growing up and there were certain movies, I know Cheryl mentioned Grease, that, Rocky. I mean, you had these movies that you would talk about, and
everybody across the country would see
everybody.
The movies, because that's it. Now, the attention span, we were talking about, is shorter. The different things on TikTok, YouTube, and the kids can scroll through, and there's so many options that there's no unifying cultural thing, right? And I think it goes to something you were saying earlier, Wesley, where some of the things they do or they watch are just simple, innocuous, mind-numbing things that I consider them, I think I use the word dispassionate. It just keeps them from pacified, bread and circus type of thing.
Oh my gosh, that's convicting. Well, what if the hillbilly Thomas, instead of getting together to play music, would have just sat and doom scrolled their social media, doom scrolled, just as their
good
escape.
Example. Yeah.
So what am I missing out on when I fall into that? What are my kids missing out on when I allow them too much time doing this or that? That's convicting.
And growing up, of course, there was always the movies that were, that were edgy. There were always the horror films, the Friday the 13th, and all those kind of stuff. But that's that's what was out there. I mean, but then I think as we grew in our faith and we began to look at, okay, what do we want to show our kids?
Yeah.
And you can even go back to me, one of probably the best religious movies in history. This is just my own opinion. Is A Song of Bernadette. I mean, you got a black and white film, but the acting and the story. I mean, it was gripping, and it was a wonderful story. And so there are good movies out there. I think, of course, I'm biased, but another great movie is Rudy. If you haven't seen Rudy, you got to see that. But even you have Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I mean, you have that are
artistic and
quietly
conveying.
Point to a greater good. And sometimes even more direct.
That seems like the big hurrah, the last one that did that. You know what I mean? Like Lord of the Rings came, and it seemed like after that happened, it was lost. That I don't know. I know it's still out there. I'm not trying to put, but I haven't seen as many of those uplifting, beautiful movies that show the good.
Yeah. Well, some of them, in an effort to awaken, they try to uplift and make things equal, and then they begin to follow this formula that is arbitrary and put on, and then you can kind of tell those movies when they come out. You got to have a yellow, a green, a red, a black. You got to have these four religions represented. You got to have, and it's not realistic. It's not life, in an effort. So that's kind of changed movies in the last five years or so, in my opinion. The attention span, it almost seems on purpose, by our culture, or maybe it's just a result of social media being so fast and the internet being so fast. But I mean, I'm not, how many kids would sit down for a 4-hour epic film or 3.5 hour epic film, of any genre, I don't know.
I don't know if we forced our kids to watch it or they just really enjoyed it. But they even, it's kind of funny, they are shocked when they hear their friends at school say, well, I've never seen Lord of the Rings or anything like that. And they're like, well, what are you crazy? Or, that's like saying, well, I've never seen Star Wars, which, there's some who say that too. But, I think you're right. Being able to sit down for 3 hours to do anything, let alone watch a movie, which, as part of our character, we have to be able to endure that. We have to be able to endure good things happening in a movie, movies that hold our attention, movies that maybe get boring for a short period of time. I mean, it's kind of that stamina. It's kind of just, that's part of life. You're going to have to endure that and know how to cope with that.
And you start to notice the details. The way this character is holding their face, or the way that the director has shown, the lighting. Like, you start to notice all those things just like you should in real life at a deeper level. Can they sit still for 3 hours and watch a movie? If it were these short little pops, those things are designed to keep them there for 3 hours only watching this, for the commercials and whatnot. So they can do it. It's the depth that is completely and utterly missing from a lot of the stuff that's out there now. It's not necessarily long form. It's long form versus short form. Short form has a place. I mean, you can get an entire lesson in a short film. Short form has its place.
Right.
And I guess I'm nervous that long form may not, where's long form going to be when my kids are older? And because I look at all the movies that, I can't wait to show them this movie, and then I got to figure out how to edit it, or I got to figure out, that's the scene I don't want them to see, or, all right, let's talk about curse words before we watch this movie. I don't know if I want to do that, and because we watched all those movies growing up. We picked a movie. Jen and I picked a movie. We showed, this is great, let's watch it. I don't remember what it was, but it was some movie we saw as kids. Probably the National Lampoon's Christmas movie, maybe, or it was one of those. Just, this is awesome. I remember from when I was a kid, and I mean, the language is terrible. There's these scenes like, what is happening? I don't remember any of this. It's because we watched it on television and they had edited it for TV, and we totally forgot that. So maybe we need to invent the app that pre-edits stuff for, the conservative parent.
It has to be out there.
Well, I mean, if we look at the original scripture that we looked at, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. I mean, we have an app within our soul that will help us discern what entertainment is good for us and our families. And we really just need to develop that and listen to that. That will inform us and
download the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, let's just do that.
That's what we need.
Sanctify entertainment.
Ask the Blessed Mother for help, right?
That's it. Yeah, Our Lady's a perfect example. if Our Lady wouldn't sit next to you while you're watching this entertainment and spending the time that her son gave you on this earth, in this whatever what you're calling leisure, if Our Lady wouldn't sit next to you, then that's probably part of your discernment right there.
Very good. That's a great final tip.
Well, the verse right before, verse 22, this whole section talking about treasures in heaven. The verse right before it says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." So what we put our attention on and our intention in is going to be where our heart will land. So that could be part of our soul app of discernment that allows us to make these decisions as we're faced with our entertainment choices.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I hope that helped everyone to kind of guide the way and open up a discussion. I know we'll be back on more. We're going to be reading about leisure soon and how to use our leisure time wisely, and give more tips. Remember to stand firm in the absolute truth, Jesus Christ, because only the truth bears praise. God bless.
Lived through time, passed through fire, broke my heart, wounded desire, changed my life, fixed the past, stared at death and it stared back, standing fast in the light of the word. A shotgun blast was the last thing I heard. I rattled in the wind like a window pane. My soul's alright, but my body...